Okay, cool. So basically, this was about starting your project, side hustle, or business, however you want to frame it. And what I found is a lot of people, obviously, we already touched upon Safwan talking about it. There's a lot of mindset issues when it comes to starting a business or a project or a side hustle. So we're going to cover that, and then obviously we'll talk about some of the execution steps. So the first thing that I want to touch upon is what exactly is a business. And the reason I put this on is because a lot of people that I speak to say, well, I don't feel like I'm a business person. I'm not an entrepreneur. All these are just labels, and that's the kind of mindset shift that you need to make. So ultimately, you need to look at what business was from a historical perspective. It was just a trade. You had the bazaars in the olden era, and then in the modern era, obviously, you had the cities. And all it is you had merchants that had products and that had customers, and you traded gold and silver or jewels, or you had the barter system. So it was just a trade. And in the modern era, obviously, you had the city and the town and the shops and the office, and you still had products and services, but you still had clients and customers, and you basically did trade for money. So when it comes to a business, instead of thinking of yourself as an entrepreneur or as a business owner or a businessman, just think of yourself as a trader. So if you are an employee right now, you are still a trader. You're trading your time for money with your employer. But to think of it as a business, all you're doing is just trading your services. Instead of getting paid by one person, you're trading it with multiple people, and that's all it is when it comes to business. And there's 4 components that you really need, and that's the market, a problem, a solution, and obviously the customer. Can you bring to the market something to trade that provides a solution to a problem a customer would pay for? If you can answer that question, then you have a business, and it's really as simple as that. Any questions, or we're good with that?
Good with that.
Good with that. I like what you said there.
Cool, no worries. So the main part really is this, right? What's the problem? So I've made this mistake, and a lot of people make this mistake where we just assume that we're gonna start a business and we're gonna start selling, and we don't really do the market research. And the most important thing is, what problem are you actually solving? And when it comes to market, just again replace that word with people. People is what you're doing everything for. Everyone talks about the product or the service and the money and the business. None of that matters. The number one thing that matters is people. Where are the people? Obviously, back in the olden days, they used to put bazaars on the way to pilgrimage because a lot of people were going towards pilgrimage, so they would be on that pilgrimage road. Why are high streets the most expensive? Because that's where typically most people are going to be. Obviously, now a lot of people are online, so you don't need to have a shop front. But still, there are pockets on the internet and markets on the internet where you need to find out where your specific market is. Guys, can somebody just drop the link in the chat? Somebody's asking for it. Sorry, somebody's coming in. 1 second. Cool, yeah. So basically, you need to understand everything about your market. What problem do they have? What solution can you provide? What are they willing to pay for? And what can you trade? And when it comes to solving problems, like everybody talks about solving a problem, but you need to differentiate what type of problem you are solving. And there are 2 types. It's either a pain problem or a desire problem. A pain problem is something to do with survival. It's something that somebody needs, whereas a desire problem is more to do with identity and pleasure and wanting to do something. Desire problems are psychological problems, not functioning ones, and humans spend more money on desire than necessities because insecurity is profitable. And the kind of example I like to give is lawyers. Obviously, my background is in law. I know a lot of lawyers. They all market as if they have a service that people want. Nobody wants a lawyer. Nobody wants the service that a lawyer provides. They need it. When they have a problem, it's normally a survival stage, or it's a very deep pain point. For example, when they need to come up for the visa or they're going through a divorce, instead of lawyers marketing to that need, what do? They start talking about how great they are, how great their firm is, how they've won all these awards. None of that matters. Yes, it adds credibility, but that's not what they should lead with. They should be leading with the pain points. And basically, the more you understand the pain point, not only does it help you to understand the customer, it's going to help you with your marketing, because the more you can lean into that, the more obviously you can attract the attention of your ideal client and customer. And therefore, any questions on that, or are we good?
Can you have both survival and pain?
Yeah, you can. Yeah,
so not pain and desire, better it's not survival.
Yeah, you can. Obviously, it would depend on it, but typically there would be a differentiation. But obviously, yeah, you can have both. Obviously, what we're saying here, though, is if you can focus more on the pain, that's going to be more profitable. And that's why, even on the cosmetic side, they're really leaning on people's insecurities. Why? Because the more insecure somebody is, the more pain they feel, and they're more likely they have to spend on trying to fix that. And that's same with fashion, same with a lot of things, right? Even like cars and stuff, right? Ultimately, that's a status thing. Nobody really needs a car, but it's a desire. They want it because of the status and whatnot. But yeah, to answer your question, you can have both. Cool. Okay, so this is probably the most important thing for everyone to do, whether you are starting from scratch, whether you're already a business owner, or whether you are an employee looking to do something different. The self-assessment exercise is the most important, and it can be the most difficult because it does require you to do a lot of looking in the mirror and a lot of self-reflecting, obviously. And why I ask people to do this is because if you're not clear on why you're doing what you're doing, you're going to end up like I was with law. So out there on the screen, I'm showing you those cars because that first car that I ever drove was a Nissan Micra, and I was happy with that car. I had no, desire for any other flashy cars or whatnot. But then once I got caught up in the lawyer lifestyle, all of a sudden I upgraded one car after another car after another car. I'm driving flashy cars, I'm wearing flashy clothes, and I care none of that. But I'm doing all of that because I'm trying to keep up with my environment, with all of the other lawyers. And all of a sudden I'm miserable and I'm depressed because I'm living this life that I don't actually want to live, trying to impress people I don't even want to be around, and accumulating material stuff that I don't even use. Like, I am a antisocial hermit. I like staying at home. I don't need a car. I don't like traveling. Yeah, I'm doing all of these things because I'm living this life based on what I thought I need to do based on what other people were telling me what a lawyer lifestyle should look like. But then when I did this exercise, it completely changed the trajectory of my life and the different things that I did. So this will not only help you with the direction that you want to go, it will form the basis for your never-ending content. So the more you answer these questions and the more you write them down, the more you will always have content to create, not just the direction that you want to go. So obviously after I go through this presentation, I'll go through the ClickUp dashboard where I've laid this out, but ultimately you want to answer these questions and list out all of these things. So list out all of your challenges, obstacles, fears, insecurities, weaknesses. Really understand on who you want to become and what the ideal vision for yourself is. What kind of life do you actually want to live, right? What I'm finding now more than ever is most people don't want to start a business. They don't want to be 7-figure entrepreneurs. What they want to do is they want to get away from their 9-to-5 life, and they'll be happy working maybe 4 hours a day or 6 hours a day if that replaces their salary. That's a completely different lifestyle, routine, action plan to somebody that wants to build a multi-million-pound business. Now, there's no right or wrong answer. It just depends on what you want for your particular circumstances and for your life. And this will change over time, right? So obviously now that I've got 3 children, I don't want to spend as much time on business and entrepreneurship and doing stuff. I want to spend more time with my family. So I'm not going to spend 12, 14-hour days working. I want to spend more time doing other stuff. But once they're grown up and at a certain age and they're self-sufficient, I'll be more than happy to then increase the amount of hours that I put in the business, and that will change my outcomes as well. Once you figured out what you want to do, you just work out what do you actually need to live and make a budget, right? So again, very important, budgeting in terms of what are your current living expenses and what would you need just to survive? What would you need to be comfortable, and what would you like to make above and beyond what you actually want to do? Then make a list of all of your interests, hobbies, and passions. Again, that'll be important for your content, and list all of your skills and experiences. And then which of those skills and experiences can you actually monetize? And then on top of that, what can you do to learn and develop? So obviously I've been talking about AI a lot. So I encourage all of you to obviously learn AI because you can do a lot with it. And so you just want to list out where do you need to develop so that you can then go on the relevant courses or the training programs or learn from YouTube, etc. And then the last question is who can help you. So that could be a mentor, a coach, a training platform, or whatever. Any questions on that before we move on? Okay, cool. So the next step then is to use all of that self-assessment, because what you're going to find is you're going to have unfair advantages. You are going to have skills, experiences, talents that other people don't have, mixed with your hobbies, interests, and stuff that you want to do. And then you put all of that together to answer the following questions, which will then form the basis of your business idea. And the question that you want to ask yourself is, who do you want to help and why, which is your market? What problems do they have, which we've already touched upon? Where do they want to be? And then how can you help them solve that problem using the answers to the questions that we asked in the self-assessment? And really, that is the crux of it. If you can nail down these answers, that's all you really need to do in terms of a business idea. Any questions on that? Any thoughts at the moment about what you currently have in terms of your own ideas?
My skills and experience don't match my business.
What is your business?
In short, it's basically helping. I don't know if it's a pain point or a desire, but basically helping people fast outside of Ramadan consistently.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, so that's linked to health. So is that more for the spiritual benefits or for the health benefits, or I'm assuming probably both?
Yeah, both.
What would you say would be the number one pain problem that you want to solve with that?
Good question.
Or why do you want to help them with that? It's probably the better question. Why do you want to help with that specifically?
Well, it's a problem for myself, but I think for most people, consistency. So outside of Ramadan, even for fasting or for reciting Quran, basically, there's no consistency.
Mm-hmm.
And you sort of lose it and then you bring it back again for the month, don't you?
Yeah.
One of the blockers, I think, is the idea is basically if you have a nice pack that you can have delivered every month for your monthly fasts,
mm-hmm.
and you've just got it ready to go, put it in your pocket sort of thing, and you got your 3 dates, 5 dates, whatever you normally have ready. There's a convenience then, isn't it?
So is it more focused on the food and the diet or the spiritual discipline?
Probably the spiritual discipline.
Okay, because that is a massive pain point, right? Because everybody these days a lot of people are full of anxiety, stress, always switched on, because fasting isn't just about, obviously, this is not just about food fasting, but fasting from what you consume. And right now, everyone's always switched on their phones and they're always over consuming. If you actually look at the statistics, they are absolutely horrible in terms of mental health. So that is a massive, I would say that's a need problem, a necessity problem, rather than a desire problem. Obviously, if you then go into the realms of want to be fit and healthy, strong and muscular, then it goes to the desire point. But also with our community, especially with our diet, so many people have got so many health issues, which we've talked about a lot. So it's definitely a necessity problem, both from the diet side and also the spiritual discipline side as well. Now you're saying that your skills don't match that, but why not? You've been fasting for your whole life, right?
Yeah.
And it's obviously something that you've got interest in, and basically you will, when you do this exercise of listing out all of your challenges, obstacles, fears, this is not something you do in one go. It's something that you will do once, and then you'll go away, and then you'll start to realize that actually something else comes to mind, and you want to jot it down every single time. And then when you've got all of these lists in front of you, then you'll start seeing the patterns, and you can start seeing what to use and what not to use. And that's how you can then bring it all together, because there's obviously a specific reason why you personally want to have the spiritual benefits outside of Ramadan. Other people will be wanting the same. So yes, you will have the skills because you're doing it yourself anyway, and you've been doing it for your whole life, but you're mixing it then with your hobbies and interests as well, because it's not just about doing that thing, it's what happens after you've achieved that result, and that's what you want to focus on. So once people have got that discipline or that diet, what is their life going to look like, or what would you hope their life looks like?
Yeah, make them envision what their journey is like, as opposed to just selling the product itself.
No, you don't sell the product, you sell the outcome. you focus on the outcome in your marketing. And then obviously the mechanism is something we'll go into later on in the presentation. Okay, cool. And then basically, once you've kind of figured that out, you need to figure out what your business vehicle is. And again, there's just so many out there now. It's just about trying to figure out what works best for your particular product, service, what you're trying to achieve. So you can have a product, and that can be a digital product, it can be a physical product, a service. Most people are professionals, so you'll have some kind of professional service. Linked to that is consultancy. A lot of people move away from corporate world and they start their own consultancy practices. But now you've got stuff like marketplaces, right? They're very profitable, where you don't actually sell something yourself. You just create a platform where other people can come and sell their stuff, and you take a commission. You can do events, obviously, which we've been doing. Creator economy is massive now. It's going to become I think I was reading something. It's going to be a $1.5 trillion industry, the creator economy, by the year 2030. Then you got different models like commission, subscriptions, an agency model, a software, a service, coaching and courses. So there really is so much you can do. The idea is not to do all of these, is to find one of these that is relevant. Now, if you don't know exactly which one, you might have to test a few different ones out, but ultimately you want to get to a stage where you're picking one thing for one market and then really going after that until you've got a validated business that's making money and profitable, and then you can test and tweak from there. Any questions on that? No. Cool. Okay, so next then you want to create a minimum viable offer using all of the questions that we've already asked. So minimum viable offer means, it's just taking the information that we've already gone through and just simplifying it. So who is your customer? What problem are you solving? What is the offer that you're actually making to them? What is the price point? What is the promise? What is the outcome? And what is the delivery method? In other words, how are you going to help them achieve what you want them to achieve? And then just again, obviously, when I go through the ClickUp dashboard, you'll write this down, and then once you've got it written down, this then forms your roadmap and also everything that will help you with your marketing. And then the next step really then is to actually do the market research and validate this idea. So you don't just want to do this based on your own thinking, you want to actually do research in the market and validate it. So how do you validate it? I'll go through the AI stuff that I'm talking about after this, but ultimately you have to speak to people, right? The more people you speak to, the better it is. And validating isn't just asking for feedback. Obviously that is one step, but an idea isn't validated unless you've been paid for whatever you're talking about. That's when you know it's been validated, and then you can go from there. But ultimately you want to start talking to people. So I would recommend talking to 10 people. I mean, I did say 10 people, but people found that hard. So at least 5 people, speak to at least 5 people, find out what their pain points are, find out what they're struggling with, find out if they'd be interested in what you've got to offer, and just get honest, direct feedback. And then obviously, you don't need to charge those first people that you speak to, but ask them, is this something you would pay for? Get that feedback because it's valuable. Obviously, you can also study the competition, find out what customers currently buy, what's currently in the market, post about it on social media, get some feedback on there, DM people directly and privately. I know a lot of people struggle with this, but you've got to reframe it as you're not disturbing people, you're trying to help them. So sending a message and sending a DM isn't disturbance, it's ultimately helping them and helping yourself at the same time as well. And then obviously you want to create a landing page and pre-sell as well. So a lot of the time, what a lot of entrepreneurs do is they have an idea. And when I worked for the company in Saudi Arabia, they were fantastic at doing this. They had an idea, they would just create a landing page or a form, and then they would put social media's posts out there saying, this is what we're going to do. If you're interested, register now. And then literally hundreds of people were registering, and then that's when they decided, yeah, this has been validated, let's build the product or service now. And that was something they did quite successfully, but a lot of people do as well. The only caveat with that is don't promise something that you haven't built. I know a lot of online gurus teach this, but to me that's unethical. Don't sell something that you haven't created yet, making out that you have created it. There's ways around it, obviously, but just do that. And then you can also form small beta groups, like obviously what we've got with the Batley Entrepreneurship Club or anything else. Just get a small group together, ask people, provide value, and get as much research and validation done before you go ahead and build the full business or build the full kind of thing. Any questions on that?
Would you advise using MS Forms? When you mentioned the landing pages.
Yeah, form. So basically, I'm assuming that's the equivalent of Google Forms. So I don't know if you remember how much of the Batley Entrepreneurship Club you remember, but when I first started, everything was done on Google Forms. So when I was asking people for interest, I was just sending out a Google form, and I did that. It got a bit messy, but that's where the initial demand came from. So there was no website, there was no CRM, there was nothing. It was just a Google form and social media posts. So I know we're going to be doing the we did kind of do the gaming thing, which I'm going to push out, but that the same thing was there, right? So the Google form is there to get the initial interest. So yeah, absolutely, you can use MS Form or whichever form. You don't need a landing page per se. You just need something to get some feedback, and the form is a brilliant way to do that without spending a lot of time in creating anything. Any other questions? Cool. Okay. So the one-page launch plan. Again, this is repetition, but it's just trying to give you a structured approach, so you go away and actually do something and not leave with not knowing what to do. So this, again, it's in the dashboard that I'll show you in a few minutes. But write this down, right? Ask yourself the simple questions: who you help, what problem they face, what your solution is, what your offer is, what your price is. You know, put a plan together to find your or speak to 5 customers. How you validated this, whether it's the form or the research, speak to people or the AI stuff, and then map out what your next 14 days is going to look like. And what should your next 14 days look like? Well, this is the roadmap for you here. Build a very simple offer. Either create a landing page or a booking link, but find a way for people to contact you somehow. Contact 10 people. Again, if 10 is too much, at least start with 5. Share with your network, create 3 pieces of content, and get lots and lots of feedback. So again, I did say this last time, and not a lot of people followed up, but I'm going to be following up with you guys in 14 days time. Get some of this stuff done, put it in the group, let's talk about it, let's discuss it, and then see where we get with that. And if you've already started with something and you're not starting from scratch, then still tighten the offer, laser focus on the target customer, speak to past customers and get solid case studies, increase your marketing efforts. I know we did the branding workshop, but this is the number one issue that I'm seeing with most people in the group and outside of the group as well. You have to understand that this is a volume game. You cannot post once or twice or whatever. You have to post a lot of times. Even now, especially with AI, if you look at what Gary Vee or Hormozy or Daniel Priestley are saying, they are posting hundreds of times a week, even up 1,000 times a week now, because that's what it takes. Now, obviously, you don't need to go into that much volume when you're first getting started out, but you do need to post quite regularly, and 1, 2, 3 times is just not going to be anywhere near enough. And again, if you've already got something going, you already got a validated idea, think about raising your price or changing the offer if you've got results. Any questions? Cool. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly run through the mistakes to avoid. I've made these mistakes and I'm seeing a lot of other people make the same mistakes. Make sure you validate first. Do not build a business or the product or whatever you're doing without validating the idea. I think I mentioned this last time. One of my first business ventures was selling ladies' shoes, and I bulk bought loads of ladies' shoes. I got the shoe boxes designed and printed in bulk. I designed the whole website. I set up a limited company. I literally did everything. And then when it came to sell, I sold nothing, not one. I didn't even sell one thing. I did no research. I didn't validate the idea. I just assumed women like shoes, then they'll buy. Don't make that mistake. I lost a lot of money with that. I lost a lot of time. Validate first and then go. And that's what Jador Shu is there. Mistake number 2 is thinking that you're going to stay in your comfort zone. This is, again, one of the biggest issues for especially people coming from a professional corporate environment. The longer you've been in that safe environment, the longer you've been in a comfort zone, the harder it is to get out. And a lot of people want to maintain that same comfort zone when they're trying to build something. You are going to be stretched. It's going to be very uncomfortable. You are going to have to do things that you don't want to do, things that you might feel are embarrassing. Even reaching out to people, a lot of people struggle with it because they're overthinking what people might think. It's not comfortable for them because they've never had to do it. Understand that you are going to feel a lot of discomfort, and that's just part and parcel of the growth and what you need to do. If you're not uncomfortable, then you're not really trying. And then the last mistake is short-term thinking. You have to have long-term thinking here. Building a business, a project, a side hustle, it's hard. Forget what everybody's telling you online, that it's easy, that it's going to, happen quickly. Like, you can make money quickly. Making money is very easy, but having a sustainable business is very hard, and it's going to take a long time. So don't think about the bigger picture when you're first getting started, because that might lead to paralysis. Think about getting the first customer first, but then also have in mind that it is going to take time to build and get traction. Any questions, any thoughts, anything at all?
Just one example. When you mentioned do not build your business idea without validating first.
Yeah.
So what about people, example, have written a book and then they just show cover A, cover B, cover C, which one would you go for? But they've already written the book. So what about then?
So I'm not sure what you mean. Just explain that again.
So, when you mentioned the first point, do not build your business idea without validating first. So somebody's already, example, written a book.
Yeah.
They only show the cover, like which cover would you choose, A, B, or C? But they've
Okay.
already written a book.
So basically, they're just trying to split test the cover, but they've already created the product.
Yes.
Okay, I'm
But
assuming
they didn't get the feedback lesson by
Mhm.
writing that book, but they've already written it. Let's say that.
Yeah. If you've already written it, then you haven't really validated it, so you don't know if somebody's going to buy it or not, or somebody's interested in it or not. So I mean, you're talking about two different things there. So one is validating the idea of the book and whether people would want it, but then once you've kind of validated that, then it's a separate thing where you're split testing which cover would work best to convert that. So even in that situation, I would still say validate that somebody wants to read this book before writing the book, because obviously writing a book will take a long time, unless it's a passion project, right? Sometimes people don't want to write a book because they want to sell it. They want to do it because they just want to have an authoritative piece, or it gives them peace of mind, or they just want to put something together for themselves. So again, it depends on the purpose. A book has multiple purposes. It depends on what type of book it is. Are you writing a book yourself, or what's the kind of thinking with that question?
No, just a general example. I'm just using that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, with a book, obviously, again, it depends on the purpose, what you're trying to do with it. A lot of people use a book as a lead magnet to sell a bigger course or a program. But with anything, always try to at least get some interest that somebody wants this before building it out, because the last thing you want to do is write a book of however long it takes, and then you realize that nobody actually wants to read it. So I would always recommend validate before building. So obviously, you can have the idea. You're not validating the business idea itself. You've got the business idea, but then you're validating whether this is something that you should spend more time, energy, and effort into building out. Okay, cool. And then this slide is just some ideas and opportunities. If you've got no idea what you want to do, literally there's so much you can do now. I mean, I've come across so much since starting Batley Entrepreneurship, but even from before, like, there should never be a situation where you've got no ideas. There are so many opportunities out there. Just pick one thing and go for it. For example, I've come across property and land sourcing, business deal sourcing like M&A work, podcast and media production, massive. Even kids sports academies, we've seen a few of that since we last delivered this workshop. There's people in the group that have got something going on. Religious media as well, right? We've talked about this previously, where mosques are struggling at the moment with the madrasa fees. So like they're charging like, I've got 2 kids going to madrasa and it's about £100 a month. And the reason they keep raising their prices is because they've got no other income source. But with what's available right now, they can create podcasts, they can create YouTube videos, they can create so much content, and they don't need to put themselves on there. With AI, you can create stories now, and that's just a way to monetize stuff. So you can literally create stuff like that and help on the religious side or the madrasa side or whichever way you want to do it. Obviously, AI is massive right now, and I wouldn't recommend becoming a AI systems person in the general sense. If you are going to be AI, be very specific. In other words, you solve AI problems for lawyers or accountants or manufacturing companies, because that's how you're going to get traction. There are so many AI companies that are so generic and they're not getting traction because they're not speaking to the market, they're not speaking to the ideal customer. And then other examples are financial modeling. So a lot of people will go to professional services working for other people, but they've got skills that they can actually monetize and use for themselves instead of just for their employer. Employee management and culture is massive. Leadership skills, people need that. Content creation, editing. Obviously now plumbing, roofing, cleaning type businesses are going to be huge. They already started to pick up. Business roll-ups, event photography, videography. There's literally so much you can do. And if you're still struggling, you can always ask ChatGPT or some of the AIs. And that's really the presentation. And before I move into the ClickUp dashboard and the prompt guide, just want to finish there. But is any questions at all on any of that? Or if there's anything else that you want to discuss?
On the business ideas piece,
yeah,
obviously I've got mine, but I couldn't make the last session. But one of the things I asked was whether someone could speak to Iqbal Bana about the hospital trust and what contracts they wanted.
So what I'll do is, I'll be honest, I totally forgot because I was just so busy that day. But he did speak, and he spoke for about 3 minutes, and he did mention something. So what I'll do is I will specifically introduce him to you, and then you can speak to him directly, and then go from there. But effectively, what he wanted was people to come up to him anyway and ask for more information. So he wanted a lot longer to talk, but we just didn't have the time. So I will introduce you specifically to him, and then you can have that conversation.
Yeah, perfect.
Cool. Any other questions? Guys, I will be following up on this. So are you clear on what you're going to be doing over the next 2 weeks in putting this together and actually taking action?
Yeah, build a landing page and advertise the landing page.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's go into the ClickUp dashboard so you can have a look at that. Right. Can you see this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. So this is ClickUp. This is what I use now for literally everything, as a CRM, sales pipeline projects, etc. So this is a template that I've created. So I'll give you instructions after the call on what to do, but you need to get ClickUp first, and then I can send you the template. But it's literally everything that we've just talked about, but in a structured fashion. So when you're going through this exercise of self-reflection and you're talking about your challenges, obstacles, you just click on here and you just write down every single thing, right? So you can do it in this format as a list format, or I think it's probably going to be easier to do it in a document format where you can just write it down as a list. And this one's easy because then you can just copy and paste this and put it into a ChatGPT or a prompt. So basically, as you're going through these exercises, just ask yourself these questions. What are your obstacles? Who do you want to become? What is the ideal vision of yourself? Your why? How much do you actually need? So all of this that we talked about, just get it written down. There is no right answer here. There is no wrong answer here. This is specifically to do with you and yourself. So what helped me when I did this is I just wrote down everything. Even if it was something minor, I just put it down because that eventually did help. And what a lot of people struggle with, or they don't struggle with it, but they don't realize it, is you will find things that are so natural to you and so easy that you don't even think it's a skill or it means nothing. But other people would absolutely value that skill. But because it's second nature to you, you think nothing of it. So write down literally everything that you can think of here, especially when you're talking about the skills and the experiences. So the way ClickUp works here is you've got these workspaces on this side, and then you can create like tables underneath it. And then when you're over here, you've got different views. So you can have a board view, a list view, or a document view, and you can create whatever view you like. So you've got different things here. It can get complicated, but keep it simple. Lots of tutorials on YouTube, but I would recommend having some kind of system in place, because what I find out a lot, especially with the small enterprises, is they've got no system in place whatsoever. And if you are somebody who's moving from a structured corporate professional environment, you need to find structure. Otherwise, you won't be able to handle the chaos of entrepreneurship. So yeah, write down all of your hobbies, interests, your skills, your experiences, monetization skills, everything that we talked about. Just write it all down. And then you can go through the questions about your market. So who do you want to help? Why? What problems do they have? Again, write it all down here. And then there is a ChatGPT prompt here, which was done last time, which isn't the guide, which I'll go through, but you can use this prompt here as well, which if you've got it written down, then you can just copy and paste this into ChatGPT, and it will give you ideas, etc. So there is a step-by-step guide here on what to do, so you can have a look at that. Again, the minimum viable offer. You just literally think of this as a starting off as a brain dump when you start off, but then as you go through these, you're then picking out the relevant bits and you're narrowing it down until you've got this minimal viable offer, and then you move on to validating the idea. In other words, speaking to those customers, studying the competition, and all of that. And then there's another idea validation script here that you can tweak. So if you were reaching out with people and you don't know how to send a message to them, you can just use this, but I wouldn't copy and paste it exactly. Change it so that it sounds like you. So anytime you're sending a message or creating content, the idea is to not sound robotic, but do it in such a way where it feels like you're actually talking to that person directly. And then you've got the one-day launch plan. Again, you're just taking out all the stuff that you've previously done and just putting it now, so you've got it in one single place, which will be easier to come back to and keep you on track. And then the 14-day roadmap is here as well. And then the one-page business plan. So you can create a one-page business plan by just answering these questions based on the work that you do. So the more of this self-reflection that you do, the easier then it becomes to answer all of these questions, and you can do a quick SWOT analysis. And then there's just some templates that I've put on there for proper business plans that I've taken from Canva as well. So yes, you're starting off with validating the idea the next 14 days, but then you've got a roadmap for the next 90 days as well if you do these exercises. Any questions on any of this or anything at all?
Not from me.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Right, and then the last thing that I just want to go through then is the prompt guide. Just give me 1 second. Let me come off this. All right, can you see this?
Yeah, put it launch guide.
Okay, so this is similar to what we've already talked about, but it is a little bit different because this is something that you can hopefully do within 1 weekend. And the point of this is to help you validate your idea, find your first customer, and build something with AI as well. So inside of this guide, you'll find how to set up an AI team. It's not agents, it's basically using Claude projects. Agents is maybe we'll do a separate session on AI in another workshop, but this is basically just using Claude in a way to organize it as a project and separate chats, which have separate functions, but then can function as a team. And then you figure out how to validate your idea and also to find a customer, and then create that first piece of content, and obviously have a weekly rhythm as well. So Every prompt in this guide can be copied and pasted directly into Claude. You don't need any technical knowledge, but don't just copy and paste it, because it does require your input as well. Because obviously, if you don't have your unique input, then you're not going to get the right answers that you actually need for your circumstances. And then just a disclaimer: AI is just changing so fast. Obviously, I'm still using Claude, but I'm still also using ChatGPT and Gemini as well. Sometimes I use Grok. Choose whichever platform you're comfortable with. I'm comfortable with all of these, and I like all of them. They've all got their own strengths and weaknesses, but Claude is obviously the one that everyone's raging about at the moment. Again, you don't need to know about code or any technical ability. It's very easy to use these platforms, but when you do this, do it stage by stage. Don't skip any steps, because then it won't really work the way you need it to work. So the first thing that you want to do is set up the AI team. This is by far the most important aspect. Don't just go out and start, talking to Claude or the AIs. Set it up properly. So you can get Claude for free. There is a paid version. I'm on the paid version. The free version obviously has limits. I'm not sure what those limits are now, but Claude is notorious for running out of limits quite quickly. So once you basically get Claude, you want to create a project inside of Claude. So project is something which will then allow you to have everything neatly organized, and then it will remember everything within that project. Create that new project, give it a name or whatever, and then just label it. And inside there's a box called project instructions, and this is where you need to give it very specific instructions. So you've been seeing a lot of my content when I'm talking about communication being the most important skill. Communication isn't just about how you communicate with other people, it's how you communicate with AI. The better you are at prompt engineering, they call it, which is just another word for communication, the better you are at specifically communicating with AI, the better your response is going to get. If you're not very clear, you are going to get rubbish responses and you are going to get frustrated with AI. I've been down that rabbit hole. Sometimes it still happens. But when I look at it, it's just me being lazy and not giving out a proper, full, detailed instruction, which is why you might not get the results that you're hoping to get. So there is a template here. Just replace everything in the square brackets. But you can literally copy and paste this and put it into the dashboard on ClickUp, or just use a Google Sheet or whatever, and then just fill out, the things that you need to. So you can be as detailed with this as you want, or you can add more stuff or take away some stuff. But the more detailed you are, the better. And then once you've got this, you can then paste it into the chats. And then you want to have 4 chats here, right? So the first chat is a demand validator chat. The second chat is a first customer outreach chat. Third one is a content creator, and the fourth, the weekly planning. So they're all different chats, but because they're in the project, hopefully Claude will be able to see what's happening in the other chats at the same time. Okay, so basically, what are these chats? So here now you want to validate the idea. We've obviously talked about why you need to validate before you proceed. Loads of businesses fail because people don't actually validate the idea. So when you've got that demand validator chat, here is the prompt that you want to put in there, right? And I've actually created a demand validator report using Claude, and it's fantastic. Like, it literally scraped Reddit, Facebook, I think it did it, and so many other websites. I mean, LinkedIn, and the data that it brought back with the actual sources was phenomenal. So literally, this is something historically you would pay management consultants and firms thousands and thousands of pounds for this market research. It would be something that it would take weeks. You can now do it very, very quickly using AI, but your prompt, your instruction has to be fantastic. The better your instruction, the better that demand validation report will be. Not only will that give you confidence that what you're building is valuable, but that will then be the basis of your content, which you can use to then obviously market what you're trying to do. So obviously I'm going to send you this so you can look at it in more detail, but fill out as much as you can, and then you can copy and paste this into the chat for Claude. And then in terms of the results, whether to decide if it's a go or not, it will depend on whether real people have this problem, whether they're already spending on it, where there's no dominant local solution that exists. I mean, but that's, even if there is competition, that's not a bad thing. Competition is a good thing because it does signify that there is demand. And then Claude will obviously give you a recommendation on whether this is worth pursuing. You should rethink if the problem is a nice to have and not urgent. The market is tiny or hard to reach. The competition is just so strong that you're saturated, which really there isn't that much out there. People think there's a lot of saturation. There isn't. You just need to find your own positioning and angle. And if there's no clarity on why somebody would pay for this, if it's a go, then obviously move on to the next step. If it's not a go, that doesn't mean quit. It just means that you need to change your instructions and just play around with Claude and find a different angle using Claude. Once you've validated the demand, then the next step is to find your first customer. Again, you can ask Claude on where your customer is going to be, how to find them, how to approach them. You can copy and paste this prompt, and then it will basically give you an outreach message, where to find them and how to go about it. But again, you do need to be very specific about your prompt. So, we've got these square brackets here, just change it for what you specifically want to do. And again, if you don't know, ask AI, right? So what I'm finding is I'm asking the different AIs the questions, and then I'm feeding the prompts back to the other AI. So I've got like a team of AI. So like Gemini is one team, and ChatGPT is another team, and Claude is another team. And what I'm finding is when I'm copying and pasting their answers to each other, they then give me a better response to what I'm looking to do. So there's no right way to do this. There's no wrong way to do this. It's just about how much time you have, how much bandwidth you have, and how much time you're willing to spend on it. And then here's a prompt on how to write that first outreach message, and then it will also help you with the replies as well. So I'm still finding that I prefer my way of writing better than AI. So don't just copy and paste what you get. Try to change it, make it sound more like you. I'm personally getting sick and tired of all the AI content online, and that's why I'm not spending as much time as I was before. But obviously a lot of people are doing that. But you're going to find that if you just copy and paste an AI written response, people are going to ignore it. Like if I find out somebody sent me an AI response, I don't even read it. I just ignore it straight away. So use it, but then make sure you tweak it so it sounds more like you. And that's what we're talking about here. So your target here is sending one message to 5 people. And again, you're not looking for sales at this stage. You're not looking for 5 yeses. You're just looking for one real conversation. Okay. And then the next stage after that is creating your first content piece. Again, there's a prompt there. You just fill out the relevant details. But once you get the answer back, make sure you tweak it. And if you do use ClickUp, I mean, I don't know if it's on the free version, but they've literally got AI built inside of ClickUp now, and it will generate so much content for you. They've got agents built inside of ClickUp where they will ask you certain questions, basically seeking your instructions so that you can get it to speak like you as much as possible, have all of the market research and data. And this is why it's good to have everything in ClickUp, because then you can use the agents inside of ClickUp to create the content for you. But if you don't want to use ClickUp, you can still use Claude or ChatGPT or any of the other AIs. And because you've got separate dedicated chats now, it's not going to get messy. And then you can use the same chat specifically for content, and you can use the other one specifically for demand validation and the other one for outreach. And obviously this is just a start, but once you build your business, you can then start creating different chats which can serve as different functions of your business. So a real business might have a HR department, a marketing department, etc. You can now replicate all of that with AI, which is what I'm doing. Obviously it's not perfect and there's still a headache, but you can now accomplish a lot more as a one-person business or as a small team. And then after obviously you post, get back the validation. if you're posting for the first time and you've never posted before, the likelihood of you getting any engagement is going to be very, very low. So I would recommend posting into Facebook groups or somewhere where people already are. If you're posting on the social media feeds for the first time, you're most likely going to be buried and ignored. So it takes time to build up. So I would recommend you post into Facebook groups. So obviously, most of you know me from Batley Matters. The first post about Batley Entrepreneurship Club was inside Batley Matters group, and I think about 100 people responded to that, and that's how it started. So that initial message is in that ClickUp dashboard. So you can even use that to see how I sent the first message validating the idea for the Batley Entrepreneurship Club. Then the final stage is to get into a weekly rhythm. Again, what most people do is they come to workshops like this, they get the information, they consume, and then they do nothing. You want to make sure that you are disciplined and have a rhythm. So you've then got the chat that can help you with that. And then every week, every Monday, or whichever day is best for you, here's the prompt that you need to put in there. And then this will give you an action plan for every single week. And therefore, you're keeping yourself accountable and making sure that you don't fall off track. So again, the 4 chats are these 4 here. And then you can go from there. So then here's just a checklist of all of the things that you need to do. So hopefully there should be nobody on this call that doesn't know what to do over the next 7 to 14 days. Any questions on any of that or anything else at all?
So at this stage, would you recommend do it towards the end or beginning or what?
Sorry, what do you mean?
So when you showed all these prompts just
Yeah.
now, ready to launch, when would
Yeah.
you recommend, at the beginning or just at the end, or when you do your research like market and etc.?
Yeah. So basically, if you go step by step, which is basically doing the self-assessment, right? I would do the self-assessment first and foremost, because if you don't know what you want to do for your specific circumstances, there's no point trying to build a business and all of that. And obviously, with the prompts and the research, the more information you give to the AI, the better the response is going to be. So if you don't do that self-assessment and answer all of those questions, you don't have the data to put inside the prompt, right? So the more you do that, then once you've kind of figured out, you don't even have to figure it out. Once you've got an idea, so once what, this is the idea that I've got. Now I want to validate it. Then you put it into ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, and then you wait for that response. Once you've got that response, then you need to actually go out and get real data from people. So you do need to reach out to people, and I think that's what you probably struggle with the most, because we've been having the same conversation for a while now. You can do as much research as you want online with these AIs, but it means nothing unless and until you actually speak to a real person and real people. Does that kind of answer your question, or have you got any follow-up on that?
Yeah, it makes sense. Yes.
Yeah. So basically, it just depends on how much time you've got. But this guide here, you can, I'll put a time limit on there on how long you can spend on this. That's just a guide. Obviously, if you take more time, the better it is. If you've got less time, I wouldn't put less than this, because you do need to spend time on this stuff to get some real results. What a lot of people are doing now is becoming incredibly lazy with AI, and they're just trying to do things quick. AI is not going to work for you unless you spend the time optimizing it and tweaking it and basically training it up, right? So you've got to think of it as a low IQ person to start off with. That's got the capability to do a lot of high IQ things, but when it comes to instructions, you've got to treat it like you're speaking to a 10-year-old child. Very specific, very detailed, and then the better you do that, the better kind of responses you'll get. But yeah, you can literally do this in one weekend. That's what this guide has been created to effectively do. So, but you got to remember, this is just to validate the idea, not to build the business. Building the business comes after you've validated the idea, you've got market feedback, and you know what people are actually saying. Cool. Any other questions about the presentation, the ClickUp, this guide, or anything else at all?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay. Are you guys clear on what you need to do for the next?
Yeah, it's Mohammed Afzal. Thank you very much for
You're welcome.
detailed go through the start of the business. In the background, I could just like to share that I made a new website for my new business,
Mhm.
and I actually used some ready-made templates through AI, a little bit help. Just an information website, like one or two pages. That's it, and it helps me. So it's like a new project for me. So hopefully, I'm going to actually share. It's finalized today. So I'm going to share after a few days with my clients.
Perfect. So that's exactly what we're talking about here. So once you've got that, you need to obviously validate it with the clients, and ultimately, once you get the feedback from people, that's the most important thing,
That's
right?
Yeah.
That's the most important thing.
Mm.
Cool. So guys, there is obviously the start your idea chat in the group. I am going to be more active on that now. So everybody that's starting with or wants to start something, that's the group now where we need to start really using. I am going to kick people out from there if they're not participating, but I do want to start seeing some responses in there, people taking action. There's no making mistakes here. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. There's nothing to be shy about. The whole point of this support group is for you to use it as a support group, but you're not going to do that if you're not using it. So make use of that as you're going through these exercises, whether you start tomorrow or next week or whatever. Start using the chats in there and let me know and let others know what you're coming up with, what you're struggling with, or what kind of responses you're getting. And then we'll keep you accountable that way as well. But yes, in the next 7 to 14 days, I do want to start seeing activities, whatever that may be. Any other questions or anything else at all? This part is pretty much open now, so you can discuss anything at all right now.
No, I think we're good. Accountability.
Okay.
I need it. That's it.
Right, I will be keeping you accountable. So yeah, any questions, obviously drop it in the group. The only other thing is from me is I do obviously need to collect feedback for these workshops for Wicker. So I'll probably send that tomorrow now. Please fill out the feedback form. Tomorrow I will also send you the email with the link to ClickUp and the guides and the presentation. But then anything else you need, obviously feel free to hit me up.
Will do.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Take care. Speak to you soon, inshallah. Take care.